from Lisa, so you can stay in touch.
Yeah, perfect. So I get started. I'm here today to talk with you about how I started my diversity and inclusion role at Haiilo from scratch. My name is Lisa, and at Haiilo I am product marketing manager. I joined Haiilo since in 2019. I'm based in Hamburg in Germany, and since April this year, I'm also, with 10% of my time, the diversity and inclusion officer at Haiilo. But to say a few words about us as well, we are a global leader in the employee communications and employee advocacy space. Actually, we are only like half a year old, because in February we rebranded to Haiilo after joining forces with SMART, Koyo, and Jubilee. And yeah, now we have more than 300 Hailos all over the world, and more than 800 customers. Also Telia, where Chris is working. I think some of you might have seen his talk about diversity as well. Yeah, and today I will talk about how I started this role. So this is far away from what Telia and Chris are doing. But I hope it's also interesting for some of you to get some ideas how to kick such a role off. So how did I start my role here at Haiilo in April? The first step, which was a pretty good first step, is that actually our C-level, our CEO, noticed that employees weren't as happy with the given diversity in our company, especially after merging with two other companies. So they decided to promote someone internally to become the diversity and inclusion officer at Haiilo. And so I applied for this role and I got it. And today I would like to share with you how I kicked off this role and started from scratch. And I would also like to share my key learnings from the past month in this role. So the really first step that I did is that I aligned with C-level. In my case, it was the CEO directly. And what was really important to me is that we really talked honestly and openly about what we expect from each other, which I think is really important, and also what we define as a goal for this role, and which actions we see and we align on in the near future. And then I also presented the role and myself to the whole company. So I talked about frameworks, conditions for the role and stuff like that. For example, it's important to know that I only work 5 to 10% of my time in this diversity role, and the other time I'm still product marketing manager here at Haiilo. Then, of course, we talked about definitions like what is diversity and inclusion actually. I shared my motivation and what diversity means to me, and also talked about next steps so that people knew what was coming next. The next step, or actually before we announced that, I already started to constantly talk to people about the topic. So I think it's really important to know what they expect and what diversity means to them. So I try to constantly talk to people internally and externally, because I know that there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm always grateful and open for new ideas that that might come out of those kind of conversations about different diversity topics. Then in June, I kicked off a company-wide internal survey to better understand what people are missing in our company when it comes to diversity, what they would like to see, what they are expecting, and also, of course, to better prioritize the topics and also the ideas that I already had. And to give you some examples from those surveys, we had, I think it was nearly 20 questions in total, so it was a really big survey, but it will be just like once or twice a year survey, so I think that's okay with 20 questions. And we mainly had like statements they should agree or disagree to, like I can bring my whole self to work, I feel like I belong here, and stuff like that. And it was pretty insightful to get results out of the survey, and we were pretty able to identify what topics we have to tackle next. So this was definitely something I would recommend if someone starts this work. And also, of course, because people feel involved. So if I ask them what they want and then they see it actually happen, the actions, and that I take it seriously, I think it's it's worth a lot. Then I just started actually. So I tried to find out what I can change and implement quickly with a small to no budget and with a within a short time frame. So I have some examples for you how I kicked this topic off internally with some smaller actions. The first one, that within our own platform actually, so our own product, our social intranet, Haiilo Home, we created a diversity and inclusion community where every employee is able to join, to get information, to exchange ideas, to give feedback and stuff like that. So really to get involved as well. And I also wrote different blog articles about different topics to provide some knowledge around these topics, like, for example, the dimensions of diversity, like here on the left, but also the history of Pride Month, because I think it's important to also provide the people who are interested in those topics, like snackable content, and to help them understand a bit more about different areas of diversity. Then what we also did is that we enabled to add pronouns to our internal communication tools like Zoom and Slack, for example. So I don't know if you knew that, but there are a lot of tools nowadays where you can add your pronouns. And I think this is a pretty easy step to create or to go one tiny step towards being an inclusive workplace. And so we also provided some guidance here, why people should do that and how it works. We also, another really small step with, I think, pretty big impact for some people at least, is that we changed our restroom signs and also implemented one restroom for everyone and for every gender. And what I think is also pretty cool to see is that people really get involved. So I try to also provide things like on the right here, for example, header images or teaser images, I don't know, for LinkedIn that people can use for Pride Month, for example, that are provided by our design team. And on the left, you can also see how new ideas can come out of, or better said, if you provide a space for these topics like diversity and inclusion, where every employee can share ideas and stuff like that, there also come new ideas from customers and from prospects that we haven't talked about before. So we didn't know before that on a regular basis, customers and also prospects ask for pronouns in the profiles from our really own social intranet product. So this is something that was also visible, that there's definitely need also on the side of our customers and our prospects. And only a few weeks ago, we also signed the Charter of Diversity to commit to the goal of making Haiilo an inclusive place to work for everyone. So to do something official as well. And now I have one question. I would like to also hear from you if there are any diversity inclusion actions within your company that you know about, or that you would like to share with us.
We can start perhaps here, Tanya.
Yeah. So of course we've also been celebrating Pride Month. We've got some very motivated colleagues who have their kind of fashion, DHL fashion line, which one of my internal comms colleagues has started by making T-shirts and dresses and jackets himself. and they have an own brand now with the rainbow on it in the DHL logo. We've got diversity and inclusion trainings, which are focusing on unconscious bias. So that's what I can think of.
Perhaps one last thing you can include is that you also have a target.
Oh, please. No, I wouldn't want to focus on that.
No, so there are targets.
So there are targets which may have to be revisited.
More ambitious, perhaps.
Yeah. What else?
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just raise your hand.
I can add something. I used to be in IBM. Now I have my own company, so I only have one employee. It's not. We don't have much diversity policy here. But when I was in IBM, when I started there, we were 85% men, and they were, of course, wanted to switch that so there were more women. And I was involved in how you write job advertisements to make sure that everybody feels included. And there we discussed not just women, but also how we make sure that people from other religions, different cultures, etc., would not be, let's say, scared off by the words that we used. So that was one thing. And then when we have these people employed, it was important that we had mentors and let's say body system that would make it possible for them to ask some questions that they maybe didn't want to ask some of the other employees. Where they had, it was very important that they had the trust of this other mentee or mentor or whatever you will call it, that there was, let's say, this relationship between them. And then we looked very much into role models. And I like the fact that you had a question about how they felt about their managers, because one of the things we found out was that the role models we had in terms of female managers was actually not something that people looked up to. A lot of these female managers, they were actually, sorry for the word I'm using now, they're very bitchy or bossy, and they were not role models. So actually we also had to look into, let's say, the KPIs of what makes people, let's say, what we grade people on in order for them to move up in the system. So I was very much involved in, let's say, how we could make IBM more inclusive and what are all the actions that had to be taken.
Great, thank you, Anya. Chris, I see you on the call. If you can speak, if you're not in the train or on a flight, do you want to highlight something?
Yeah, maybe we have done a lot, so I could also share some links afterwards. But one of the main learnings is to dare to be ambitious enough to really set some ambitious goals. We did 5 public committed targets. Basically, the board kind of committed to achieve 5 public targets. I think that's quite of a big, bold statement of a company of 20,000 people and 7 countries. One of the goals were 50-50 gender balance in all our markets, in all levels, within 2025. The other one is 100% of our managers and recruiters will be trained in inclusive recruitment practices, inclusive leadership, and unconscious bias. The third one is guarantee of equal pay. So we do an equal pay analysis across all our 7 markets every year and closing the gaps. Then we also have done a pilot survey 2 years in a row because it's quite sensitive, but we will launch hopefully next year the full survey of equality, belonging and inclusion to get numbers on LGBTQI community, ethnicity, other abled people and so on. So we have that in addition to gender and age, so we can also set targets on those minorities. Then I think we tend to talk about diversity as the minority game, but what I tend to think we miss is to talk about it as a majority game first and foremost, and then 2 thoughts in the head at the same time. We will also bring the minorities up to the level of the majority. But diversity is basically about every single individual of our 20,000 people coming to work every day in a pink suit if they want, in a sweatpant if they want, in having their bad humor that no one laughs off if they want, and feel comfortable about that. So all the small nuances and colors is basically the end game of diversity and inclusion.
Great.
The last public goal is then drive the pipeline. We are kind of in a shortage of talents. So we need to think differently. So we took, for example, a data engineer program that usually lasts 6 years and put it into 12 weeks program and then educate the data engineers within 12 weeks and they promised position in Telia. So we don't have time to wait for people to take masters or girls who wants to go in tech within 19 years and maybe end up in Telia. We need them now and we need them at least within 12 weeks.
Thank you, Chris. Spot on. Lisa, back to you.
Thanks everyone for sharing. So I think there are some ideas already that I can definitely put on my 2023 list. But as I said, I just started in April. So here are my key learnings from the last few months that I would like to share with you. And also recommendations in case someone would like to implement such a role completely new in their company. So I think number one is to let people apply for the role. So like we did it here at Haiilo, I think it was the right way to do that, because if you let employees, for example, vote for that role, they might vote the person they, I don't know, like the most or something like that. But I think what is the most important thing when it comes to such a role is the why behind why you want to do this. So I think this is especially important because you have to speak up for people and stay persistent, also in front of higher management and also in front of C-level, which definitely can be tough. And I can tell you that you will feel annoying sometimes, but I think that's okay. And if you know why you're doing it, it's definitely much easier. Then I would also recommend to not start without a real budget. So this is what I actually did. I started without a budget. So of course I got some budgets from our people and culture team, for example, for keynotes or also interviews. But in the end, it is expensive to really have D&I actions and plans in place. And I'm not only talking about trainings, keynotes, and other incentives, initiatives, but also that you might need more like human resources. So you might need more than one person who is tackling this topic, and maybe more than 5 to 10%. So let's see what comes next year. Then what is really important is that you align with C-level, that they really have your back, because you will do mistakes. And what was really important to me is to really say, if I make mistakes, I need you to have my back, because diversity is a complex topic. And I think all of you can think about some actions, some measures that were good intentions, but in the end not that good. In reality, or there were some things you didn't think about and stuff like that. But on the same, on the other hand, I would also say do not overthink stuff. So if you're starting that role, there are plenty of little things that you can change quickly without having a big strategy behind it, or without having big goals behind it. So I think you can definitely start with what you have and then grow from there. And I think what is really, really important also to know is that things won't change overnight. So I think it's still a change process. And in the end, we are also challenging what individuals are thinking and believing in because they were raised this way, for example. And that makes diversity sometimes a really complex topic. So it needs some time and it's a lot of learning for people to get used to certain things. For example, adding pronouns to the profile. So maybe some people don't understand why it is important or could be important for someone. But I think from time to time, and when they hear it more often, they will kind of get used to it, start thinking about it and stuff like that. So is there anything else that you think is important for setting up such a role as D&I officer from scratch? Or have you any experience with starting it from zero? I don't know, Chris, if you have started such a role from scratch. I know that you have a whole team nowadays, which is pretty cool actually. But maybe you also have some ideas for like small things that have a big impact.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're mentioning already is to never, and you learn that have started many roles from scratch, but I've learned to actually be quite honest when people ask me to take on a role and say, this is the part of a role I have strength within. So I can be an ambassador, I can be a thought leader, I can do trainings, I can facilitate, but I will not be the one doing like 90% reporting, legislations, and kind of data and analytics. If I'm going to do that fully, the role, then I need a person to take that. So that's kind of playing on your strength and be honest of what kind of you can really do well and what others need to do. And then you said about the budget, and then usually ask for more than you think you need. And then also the team around you. Probably if you're alone, it's quite difficult. So either set up a hub with people in the organization that can be ambassadors or champions or whatever, or get like a bit more resources to start up with. And then I think the last thing is a mandate and like a really clear buy-in from the ones who are setting up the role that this is on top of the agenda for the business and that you are actually willing to act. I will never again probably take on a diversity and inclusion lead role if it's not really anchored in the business strategy. Because to fight endlessly, I could do fighting better in another role that's more crucial to the business and people actually take it seriously. I think what you say and everybody say is that it's going to take time. I think that's bullshit. It's really difficult. I think that's bullshit. And whatever people say, we take diversity and inclusion important to our company. I think that's also bullshit because many companies that say that and mean that they will deliver on the targets within 6 months. We have many good examples of tech companies that has gone from 10% women to 50-50 just within 6 months. So we need to step up the game and be a bit more honest and actually prove it by actions, not words.
Thank you, Chris. I know that this is not your favorite topic to talk about. You want to do something about it.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing alongside Lisa. Perhaps we have time to hear from one or two others. Perhaps also those who we haven't heard from so far. Tara, would you mind saying hi?
Hello. Yeah, I've been trying to keep my mouth shut actually, because in a role many years ago, I was a diversity team coordinator for a large London university. And I had a honeymoon phase where it was actually my job to coordinate the various diversity networks. So we had various groups of diversity networks and champions for each of those networks. So at first it was very inspiring for me. But unfortunately, it was about the time just after the financial crisis, and the university I was working for had a lot of budget cuts. And as seems to be the case, unfortunately, it wasn't seen as particularly business critical. So some of the people who I'd worked with as champions found themselves in positions where they were getting made redundant. So I think that kind of goes to back up the claim about the budget, because you need to have a long-term strategy in place, but you also need to have the funds to make sure it's sustainable. And the university I worked for didn't have that. So it kind of meant that rather than organizing all these amazing events and really making sure that the diversity champions had input into the university's policy, instead, in my last few months of the job, I found myself actually being more of a counsellor, because they knew I'd been through redundancy before from universities, and a lot of them were going through that for the first time. So as I say, I've been trying to keep my mouth shut, because I've always toyed with the idea of getting back into the area, because I find it absolutely amazing. I think it's just so important. And, you know, not just because I'm a woman and a feminist, but because I believe in equality. And I didn't want my experience to be a cautionary tale for other people that are enthusiastic about the field.
Thank you, Tara. Much appreciated. I didn't know exactly what I got myself into there, but thank you for sharing your story.
Sorry, you did ask.
No, it's good. It's good. All right, Lisa, we have a couple of minutes left.
So I
anything?
have like 2 more slides. I would just
Perfect.
go on quickly. So I only have, I also have something that I would like to give to you, like small ideas about how what you can do to drive that topic forward in your organization or general in your environment. And I think what is important, or what is pretty easy actually, but can have a big impact, is just ask your D&I people how to support them, because I can promise you they always need helping hands. So if you would like to get active, just talk to them, just ask them if you can get involved. Then I would also say, don't underestimate your power. I think often we think that that small things we do or say don't have a big impact, but I think it's the opposite. And I think it's all about being role models also in like these small things that we are doing, saying, and to more steps. Like, for example, adding your pronouns to your profiles, even if it's not relevant for you personally, it might help someone else if more people do that, for example. And what's really important, I think, as well, is educate yourself. So I really see a lot of people thinking that people own them, or that people own them to explain why they see certain things a certain way. But I think that's the wrong way. So if you're interested in one topic, there are plenty of books, there are plenty of podcasts about the different topics of diversity. And if you're listening to them or reading books, I can also promise you that you will read about a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different thoughts that you haven't had before, that help you also to maybe be a bit more sensitive about the topic as well, and about dealing with different kind of people. And then I would also say, speak up if you see something wrong, because in the end it matters what happens behind closed doors. And if you witness behavior that doesn't match your value or the value of your company, speak up. And that should, of course, not be like finger pointing in a large group, but just a quick hint in the chat or one-on-one talk to explain why you didn't appreciate that behavior, for example, or what was said. And I know that it's really difficult, but often there's no progress without friction, so it can get uncomfortable, but I think it's really important to speak up sometimes. Yeah, I had one more question, but I think we ran out of time. So maybe if you would like to follow up on that topic, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, and we can have a chat one-on-one as well if you're interested.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Right on time. Thank you very much, Lisa. Really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for listening.
We made it right on time. I'll share the notes and the links and the great input also from Chris. We've hosted him on previous calls. I think he's very inspirational, but so were you, Lisa. So thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.